back.
Hello.
We got our mic working, which is really exciting.
We're like so professional now.
Thank you to our OG beta test listeners who sat through an hour and a half of us failing with the microphone. We really appreciate you, and we're really excited to have our shit together this time.
I'm super excited too.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, okay, so this rotation of stuffed animals today, or do you rotate these ones? Or are
I
they
do
always?
not. These are always the same.
These are always the same. Okay.
Yeah.
What are their names?
I don't know. This dinosaur I bought when I was on a business trip in Austin. Fun fact, I went to this shopping center and they had a Francesca's back when I was still, this was like 5 years ago when I was still really into Francesca's. And I saw it and really wanted it, and I told the cashier that it was for a baby shower for my friend. So I bought it. The sloth's name is Samuel. That was a gift from one of my friends in college. And the Yeti's name is Yeti, and it's from Copper Mountain.
Aww.
Along with like an overpriced sweatshirt that I have from Copper Mountain. But it's documenting when my family came to ski last year, so it was like the money was worth it. But I think it was the last Yeti in the store.
Oh, so yeah, you had to bring him.
So I had to get it.
Yeah.
But these all stay the same. The only ones that get rotated are in the bedroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to go through your collection because I know there's a lot. But Emily has quite a collection of stuffed animals, and I just want to know their history.
I have too many. That's like a whole like episode probably. The lore of all my stuff.
The lore, I love it.
But yeah, we can add that to the list.
Yeah.
Anyways, what was your rose of the week?
Okay. Well, all right. So I have to preface this with it's been a hard couple of weeks because of work and everything like that, and I've been working a lot of extra hours. It's one of those things where I wake up, I work, I go to the gym, and then I go back to work. And I think for me, when that happens, I really love taking walks. And I think my biggest thing from this week was just how grateful I am for the proximity for being close to like Wash Park and being able to walk there and just appreciate again how many people are out doing things even when it's cold, and the ability to just be in nature. It's like a 5-minute walk away. So I like sat on a park bench one day and was just like, this is so nice to just get out and just listen to nature and be outside and not staring at a screen, because I feel like I've just been indoors for so long, and I haven't really made an effort to do hiking or snowboarding or anything. So just getting out a little bit every single time I can is kind of nice. That, and I have been making matcha lattes, which are really good. So, sometimes small things like fancy coffee helps.
Yeah. And I'm glad you got out for your walk before today. It's a bitch of a temperature today. It's 1 degree. It says it's 5, just kidding. It's 5 degrees, which isn't great, but we're gonna make it through. Obviously there are colder places to live.
Yeah. Oh, I'm watching a girl carry her little husky down the street. His paws probably froze.
It's very chilly, so we're inside. That's good. I'm glad you have the little things to get you through the day.
Yeah. How about yours?
My victory this week, I went to the dentist for the first time in like 2.5 years.
Amazing.
And the hygienist, like, great. I highly recommend them. So if you live around me, happy to recommend. But the hygienist was very, hygienist was great. And she was like, well, next time you come in, it'll be easier. And I was like, yeah, I get it. But the dentist said I had good mouth anatomy. And I was like, what that mouth do? But I love like an interesting compliment. And so I was like, I'll take it. I have no idea what that means, but I'll take it, I had a former like friend and ex-boyfriend once tell me, and I think I was like 18 or 19. He was like, you know how to make coffee not taste like coffee? And that's one of the best compliments that I carry with me.
It is, because coffee kind of tastes like ass.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that is a great compliment.
Yeah. So we're not in each other's lives really anymore, but I carry
You
that.
still carry that with you.
Every morning when I make coffee, I'm like, I'm a winner.
Yeah. I feel like the only compliments that are coming to mind that are like really unique for me are also kind of borderline like ick. But one time I used to work downtown when I was living in Cleveland, and this is how I know I would be a successful feet pics person.
Sure.
Because a complete stranger came up to me I was sitting in the square, like they had a little outdoor cafe area, and I was eating lunch, and I had some like sandals on or whatever, and he was like, I love how your toes are so long. And I was like, that's weird. Okay, but thank you. And then it got really weird, and I had to like get up and leave and go back to the office because he was talking about like how he loves to give feet massages. It was so yeah, like it got really weird. But I'm like, well, it's good to know that, you know, at least my feet would hit with some type of audience.
Yeah, stay tuned for our OnlyFans.
Yeah, maybe I should just post like my feet, because like I can like write. Have you ever tried to like write with your toes? And, like do stuff with your toes? Like
No.
I have my toes are very. What's the? I'm looking for the word. Like they have a lot of dexterity.
Yeah, like dexterous.
Dexterous? Is that a word?
I think so. If you're ambidextrous, you can also.
Okay.
be
Yeah.
dexterous.
Yeah. I have dexterous toes.
I love you affirming yourself. Anyways, so
that's a thing.
Those are our roses for the week. So that's really exciting. So last time we recorded, and then we finished up, we went and ate pizza, and then we made Paul watch Mamma Mia, which he'd never seen, I believe.
He said he enjoyed it.
He enjoyed it. I mean, who doesn't enjoy like an hour and a half worth of ABBA? But we started talking about movies that didn't age well, and so this is where we wanted to start today, because I think we were just going through Netflix, and you were talking about how we passed like The Office or something, and you said, like,
yeah, it was actually, so I was thinking of She's All That,
Oh, that's
because
right.
I had that
Yeah.
2-week stint where I was in bed, very ill, and I was just watching all of the 90s rom-coms, and I don't remember what it was specifically about She's All That, but the opening, the first 10 minutes, I was like, I have to turn this off, because there were gay jokes, there were ugly girl jokes, it was just a lot of very cringy, very stereotypical way back when in the 90s,
Yeah.
and then I saw it was, it's a Harvey Weinstein movie, and I was like, oh, I guess that tracks, and, but yeah, it totally opened up this, because Paul and I talk about this all the time, we'll go back and watch things for the nostalgia of it, and then we've come so far, even in the past couple of years. If you think about, like, I don't know, from like 2018 to now, there's so much that you could watch back in before. I would just say like maybe before the pandemic, and now you watch it and you're just like, wow, this is inappropriate. Like
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable.
yeah.
And The Office is definitely one of those shows. I think I think that's part of that humor of the time was, this excessively cringe boss trying to make it in a world, or trying to come off as, cool
Yeah.
or whatever. But the big thing that stands out for me now, especially, with a lot more of the neurodivergent conversations that are coming out, is the treatment of Jim as this hero who's up against Dwight, and it's really just autistic bullying, you know, and I think a lot of people are seeing that now, and you know, to think about it, you know, I never thought of it that way. I was just like, oh, okay, this is, you know, sometimes some of it was uncomfortable, but now watching it and I'm just like, oh, Jim's kind of a dick.
I am not into a lot of like very picky about comedy. So I don't know, I'm just like very picky about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure like one of my favorite movies is Talladega Nights, and I'm sure there's like something in there that's probably not PC, but I noticed it, and I told you this, I have seen it a lot more because my dad likes old movies. Like we joke at home that he like he does watch things that are in color, but like growing up, it like if it wasn't the 1920s, like I mean, he also they watch a lot of like Magnum PI and those old like 80s shows, and so we watched a lot of Turner Classic Movies as a kid. And one of our kind of classic family films growing up is one with John Wayne called The Quiet Man. And as in this life now, I'm like, oh, maybe this is why I like so much Irish content, because I was like conditioned with this movie as a kid. But it's about this American guy who like moves to Ireland, or he like retakes his family land or something, and he lives next door to, you know, Maureen O'Hara, who's this like redhead spitfire, and she lives with her brother, and they like, you know, they kind of like fall in love, but it's like that, you know, I hate you kind of like fall in love. And there's all these like jokes about women, and you know, at one point he's like gonna return her to her brother when she makes him mad, and they're like dragging her up this hill and all that shit. And I mean, you know, little 8-year-old me was like, God, what a good movie. And then 29-year-old me is like, ooh, that's not. But also, like, I mean, but it's supposed to. I don't even know what year it's supposed to take place in. But like, they didn't have the language to talk about toxic relationships and things like that back then. So like, yeah, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. To like, I can still enjoy the movie, and then also recognize that like, no one should be dragging anyone by their hair up a hill to return them to their brother. Like, that's not it.
And that's a really good point, you know, is that you know, sometimes you have to enjoy it for what it was at that time. And I think there are a lot, like I think about like Leave It to Beaver, but there was just so many shows that were just excusing abuse of your significant other. And I mean, it's great that we've come so far as to be like, yeah, that's definitely not okay, but it really does reflect back to a very different time. And I was watching this video that an older woman posted on TikTok where she was talking about, you know, she was, I forget when exactly she was born, but she was like, my grandmother was born right around the time when women got the opportunity to vote. And you know, and just think of how much progress we've made since then. That wasn't that long ago. You know, if you think about it, like we weren't even allowed to cast a ballot. And so, and when you think about it, you know, some of these films are made around that time, and so women were really kind of this, you know, they had to. There was another thing she talked about, you know, you couldn't have birth control without the consent of your husband. You couldn't buy property without the consent of your husband. So all of these things, you know, that like we really have made leaps and bounds, but at the same time, it feels a lot like we're still fighting a lot of the same things that we fought like 100 years ago. But that's a whole nother tangent.
I'm curious to know what else is on your list.
Okay, did you ever watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
No.
Or like any of the Joss Whedon,
Not
Dollhouse?
I like, and again, I'll preface this by saying there's a lot of movies from like the 80s and 90s that I haven't seen, again, because my dad liked old stuff. And my mom's a first generation immigrant, so like she didn't grow up in America. Like,
Yeah.
she didn't grow up watching that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like the 80s, 90s is like that period where like I wasn't alive or sentient, and they didn't really care to like feed it in.
Yeah.
So we watched a lot. I mean, we watched a lot of like PBS.
Yeah.
And like Cartoon Network and stuff. But then I feel like we kind of got on like the political talk show train very early. Like we would always watch like Jon Stewart and stuff at night.
Mm-hmm.
They are not into reality TV.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were watching like a sitcom, it was like Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Right.
And then I got older and like started to seek out my own shows. So I never watched a lot of like commonly popular,
like those,
TV.
like the pop TV
yeah,
shows.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what I watched at the time, especially when in my formative years, my dad was very into. I grew up in a very like fantasy sci-fi household. That was what we read and that was what we watched. And my dad was big into like Dungeons and Dragons, and so we always played that. So I think a lot of these like kind of fantastic like. The big shows that I think about that I grew up on are Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Xena, Warrior Princess, all of these like kind of more, just like more folklorical type stories, we didn't really watch, I'm trying to think if there was like anything that we watched that was like not that, but yeah, like Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, yeah.
These, but they had, it was very interesting because at the time when I was growing up, I saw these as very strong female characters growing up, and I think a lot of other people did because it was like Xena, Warrior Princess was, she's kicking so much ass, and she's a woman, and now. And same with Buffy, and now I go back, Paul and I started rewatching Buffy, and I was like, I still have the same sentiment, and I think it's from a different viewpoint now because, like when I was growing up, it was very, and I think this is probably another tangent about like how my dad raised me to think about women, but I was always like, I can't be like, being a girly girl is a bad thing. And I think a lot of women might relate to that story where you that wasn't like a good thing. You had to be this tough as nails kind of girl. My dad, I'm the oldest of 5, and my dad had always wanted a boy, raised me to be very, my parents were always like, there are boy sports and girl sports, and my dad was like, we don't want you doing things like that are girly or whatever. So you see these characters that are just, they're kind of badass, but then Buffy kind of has this girly ditzy side, and that was always like, oh, that's a bad thing, And now I watch it and I'm like, I love that side of her because she's like a girl's girl, and she's being, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that aspect of her, whereas, I think people kind of had a different viewpoint then. But then from the other side of it, a lot of things that I watch are very, in that show specifically, there's a lot of homophobia, there's a lot of sexism and racism, and just, common themes that, I think the homophobia was the most shocking to me, just because, I can't believe that in the 90s that was something that we didn't really nobody talked about. And and there's like a specific scene I'm thinking of where one of the characters, Xander, is talking to a guy in the locker room. The guy comes out to him and is gay, and Xander's like, don't touch me, don't be like, I don't want to be involved with you because I don't want anyone thinking I'm gay. And it's just like, dude, that's, it was almost like he was acting like it was contagious, and I felt like that was I was like, oh shit.
Well, you do have like the historical context of like the AIDS crisis.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
So.
And I think that's where a lot of that stigma came from. So it was it's just very interesting to see that through a different lens.
It's critical thinking.
Yeah,
Use
right.
those critical thinking skills, y'all.
Yeah. Woo.
Yeah.
Higher education.
That's, look, Wikipedia's, I mean, but I, like, as someone who likes doing research and who loves, like, looking into that, that's, understanding the social differences and even, like, regional and, like, cultural and things like that. I'm like, that's so important. Like,
Right.
it's okay to go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And figure out, like, why something is how it is as opposed to now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I really love that about you, because I think that there are a lot of people who just take things at face value, or they read something and they are like, this is, I think as much as you want your news source or whatever to be unbiased, there is a lot of bias in a lot of things that we read. And I see a lot of people who will read, like, I don't know, my dad's like the Fox News guy, right? And and then my mom gets all of her information from YouTube, which you can imagine.
I mean, YouTube's also come along.
It has come a long way. But I do think that, you just have to be careful with your sources. And I really like that you do the research and you like to fall down those rabbit holes and you like to determine things for yourself, because a lot of people, I won't say a lot of people, but it does, I don't see, how do I put this? I think that a lot of people don't want to do that work, or they want, they want something quick to ingest. It's not that they don't want to do the work, right? But we are all very busy and we're all our time is limited. So we want something that is a quick blip that we can ingest very quickly. And, but sometimes that's not the whole story.
Yeah. I've been watching, or I finished watching season 2 of The Gilded Age.
Ooh.
On HBO, and it's a period drama, because I love a period drama. But I think it's like what the late like 1800s in New York, and so like old money versus new money, and these women are so mean to each other. They're so mean, and that's like hard for me to understand now, because I'm like, women support women, all that stuff, but then like, and I kind of spoil shit for myself, because I'm like, the show is on in the background and I'm on Wikipedia on my phone, like trying to figure it out as I go. And there was a lot of chat like about, the old money women don't like the new money women, and they believed that there should only be like so many generations, like, separation from like where the money came from and now. So there was like a whole, and then they like don't invite each other to the parties, and they like, there was a whole opera war, like, girl, the opera. But it was interesting, some of the discussion that I've seen online about like, if you, as a woman, like your family's making money, you finally have like a better place in life and you fight for it, as opposed to like, I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree, because again, like I live in this day and age right now of like, I want to support everyone and I want everyone to succeed and thrive. But there's a lot of interesting stuff about, it's like pre-Titanic period about like all of this. Yeah. But yeah, I'm like on Wikipedia reading about these ladies like while they're fighting on the TV. It's like, man, there was a lot that happened. And then part of me wishes I could just like wear a nice dress all day.
Same, girl. I want to, some of the, right, because you think about these society women, and they were supposed to like play the piano, look nice, take walks with a parasol.
They go change for like every meal.
Yeah.
Like, bro, I'm wearing one outfit and it's to the gym.
Exactly. Like, I don't know. I can't even fathom. I wonder, I want to be on a fly on the wall for that time period because I enjoy reading things like Jane Austen, and I think she does a really good job of being like, yo, these women, we're bored as fuck, right? Yeah. And I'm like, you had to have been, you know? And think about how much that stifles you to be put in this box, right? But I do love a good Victorian get-up.
Dress.
Nice frilly,
nice outfit.
Some petticoats or whatever. But I do the same thing when I watched so I got really, it was actually not, I didn't watch it. I was reading a book about, it was historical fiction about the Ottoman Empire.
Oh, yeah.
And I went down a rabbit hole with the Ottoman Empire because I didn't know anything about it, right? And so the book is specifically about Vlad the Impaler and his role in the Ottoman Empire's history and everything. So he was from Romania, and so there's just all of these countries that I don't know a whole lot about, and I was fascinated with that whole with the hold that the Ottoman Empire had on that whole entire space of country. I mean, there were so many countries under their rule for so long, but so the book is told through the eyes of Vlad the Impaler, but as a woman.
Oh.
And so they make her this like very vicious, it was a great book, great series. And as soon as I finished it, I was like, I need to know how much of this is true. And it was very, very well written. And the woman who did it put a lot of research into it. And so then I was just up at like 2 a.m. scrolling, like, ooh, and then what happened, and so I also love falling down the rabbit hole with the historical pieces, and I'm happy that there's a medium that puts them out there for people, because when you think about it, right, you learn about these things when you're in high school and in your history class and everything, but if I'm being honest with you, there was so little that I was interested in high school. I really think that learning has to be lifelong, and some of this stuff that you're like, when you're 16, you're like, I don't care, but like now, as a 34-year-old, that's fascinating.
I think all of this is once again a really good segue, which I think maybe that's our superpower with this podcast. So I asked Ash to talk a bit this came up this week when I was terminally online, as I tend to be. I was on Twitter and saw a tweet about Taylor Swift. And I'm not a Swiftie. I admitted, if she's for you, that's cool. She's not for me. And I don't remember what music video it is, but one of her music videos, she's talking about having an eating disorder. And I think she talks about it in her documentary. I haven't seen it, but this is kind of documented now in her life. And there was an interesting thread that came from the tweet about millennials in particular, which I am like the tail end of the millennials. Ash is a couple of years older, so we're towards the end of it, right? And how much millennials, specifically millennial women, were affected by early to mid 2000s diet culture. And someone had made a comment about I think someone had said, I'm not really sure what this means, and then someone else had said oh, do you remember the 100-calorie packs, those little, when they turned the Oreos into essentially graham crackers, and everything was 100 calories, and the it girls of the time, not that they have lost popularity, but the Simple Life or whatever was on, and there were all these girls, and there was this pressure to be thin. And did you ever have a moment in your life or your youth where you became very conscious about your weight?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was a really interesting trajectory, because I really think this diet culture came to light it was definitely 2000s. And then when I really started to focus on it was when I was in college, and shortly after college. So that was 2007 to 2011, and then onwards.
Yeah.
So a bit of a backstory. I was always very, when I was growing up, I was very small, and I was very underweight. So when I was in high school, I was always trying to gain weight, and it was always, I could never, I guess, relate to my friends who were they were already in that headspace where they were oh, I need to look a certain way, and they were always complimenting me for being thin, and I was I'm not doing anything. I am just I need to gain weight, if anything, and then all of a sudden there was this switch that flipped. So when I I was a gymnast in high school, and when I started to, that was like my first road into, you know, having any kind of like formalized athletic training, and I gained probably 40 pounds in a year, which is a significant amount, right? I put on a lot of muscle, and I, you know, once you start doing that kind of training, your appetite increases and everything. And I was very happy with it. And then going to college, and I went to college, I joined a sorority, and suddenly there was this spotlight on how I looked and how I behaved as well that I had never had on me before, because I had never been really, I would say, like, as a high schooler, I was kind of like a little bit of a loner, and you know, suddenly you go to college and you're in this very large group of women, and you're suddenly subjected to their viewpoints on things like weight and beauty and things that I had never thought of, right? And so I think, you know, I continued, I joined the cheerleading squad, and I remember my friend and I would always talk about, because again, we were still pretty like thin for our, you know, I would say we were still like on the underweight side, and we were always talking about like these workouts that our coach would put us through that were really like, at the time I thought they were grueling. They were not. They were no CrossFit workout, but they were very cardio based.
Yeah.
Right? And on the one hand, I guess that's okay. When I was on a competition cheer squad, so you were basically doing dance routines, right? Dance and tumbling routines. And so you did have to have a certain amount of cardio, but it wasn't very well thought out, right? It was just get on the treadmill for an hour and just burn as many calories as you can, because we don't really care. There's no training aspect here. There was no real, they were like, oh yeah, and then train weights, but it wasn't the weight training that you and I know. It was like the quad machine and you know, like, and we never did arms, we never did any upper body because you couldn't, God forbid, and there were definitely, we had one friend who was on the squad who was, I would say, you know, mid-size, right? And our coach would make a lot of comments and be like, you know, you've really got to bring your weight down if you want to, you know. And she was always, always under the pretense of health. For your health, you need to be, you know, a certain weight. And I remember one time, I'm just going down memory lane now, just thinking about all the like kind of messed up stuff that this coach really instilled in us. And I remember one time we stopped at a McDonald's on the way to a competition, and I didn't hear this announcement, but we were on like one of those big school buses, and she was like, okay, everybody go in and grab something, but only grab a salad, because we're gonna get there, we're gonna warm up, and then we're gonna go on stage. You need to have your energy. I bought 2 cheeseburgers, and because I didn't hear this announcement, and she berated me. She was like, you're gonna feel like shit, and you're not gonna have any energy. And I'm like, even back then I was like, yo, that's messed up, because y'all are eating basically water, because those salads don't have anything in them. There's no protein. I'm like, I'm getting protein, fat, carbs, like this is more balanced than a side salad that everyone was eating, you know? And so, but that was just commonplace. And that was what all of those girls who were on the squad were told. And then, you know, kind of going back to the sorority, there were a lot of like beauty standards that were instilled that I felt like I was just clueless about all of this stuff. But I do feel like it really reached a head post college when Pinterest came out. And I think that Pinterest was the catalyst for some really great things. I love Pinterest. I still love it for a lot of things, but I think that a lot of the info that circulates on Pinterest is false information. And there were a lot of these cleanse diets and a lot of these, you know, oh, here's how to burn 1,000 calories in 4 minutes, or some, you know, some asinine thing that is, you know, it's not realistic, it's not attainable. But I did pull up my Pinterest board from 20, I think it was 2010. So we can look at some of the workouts that I was really interested in back then. But if you want to, so I guess I've rambled on about it for a little while. So tell me what your experience was.
It's interesting because you grew up athletic. I did not. I was a theater kid. Which just still makes me giggle when I think about what my life is now. But it's interesting because, like, from your perspective, a lot of the pressure was like outside enforced, but for me it was all self-enforced.
Okay.
So I remember mine started really young. I was like 10. And I had a friend, I think we were in like 4th or 5th grade, and she lost weight like within that time span. I mean, and all, like, you know, you eat as a kid, whatever, like you can be chubby, you're gonna lose, you know, you go through puberty, your body's gonna change. So this is like the prepubescent time of our lives. And I remember one day she told me, she was like, oh, I weigh like 70 pounds. And something about that in my mind to me was like, I need to be 70 pounds. And then I started weighing myself all the time. You know, like 10 years old, there's, you know, and again, like these are all, again, the caveat is like, these are all our experiences. Obviously, like if, you know, there might be concern for a child to lose weight, but you know, you're also going through puberty. Like there's a lot changing for your body. Yeah. And so for like that short period of time, like I got really obsessed with it. I started eating like Caesar salads everywhere. And my dad's like, you cannot go to a nice restaurant and order a Caesar salad. At that point, they had started adding like calorie counts to menus. So you're like, you don't know anything about what 2,000 calories means. You're just like, oh, that says 500. That's got to be bad because that's X percentage of 2,000. So I think for a while it didn't really hit. And then like in high school, I was thinking more about appearance in terms of, we're doing this musical in the spring and I really want this role, but like I don't think I'll, you know, I like physically, not even like weight related, but just like physically may not fit what they want. So like it didn't really, I don't know, just kind of whatever. And then in college, I started college, you know, your schedule is different, you're eating differently, you're away from home, you suddenly have access to like, I have $200 to go spend at the weird little grocery store. Like my friend and I, we have pictures of us like sitting on the floor of our dorm eating Nutella like on graham cracker. That's just what you did. And I had started hormonal birth control. So I've been on the pill now for what, like 10 years. And that affects your body. And I remember going to the fitness center the first couple of months of college and stepping on the scale and being like, I'm 128. Like I'm used to being 120, like what is happening to my body? So there's still that like number in mind. And so it was like, you know, started like not eating enough and trying to count calories. There's a lot of disordered eating, doing too much cardio. And then one day I remember being on the elliptical and being like, I can't even do like a 7 on the elliptical. Like I'm so tired because I'm not eating enough. So that kind of, you know, was the point of like, I need to, you know, I can't do this anymore. Let's just like eat what we want and like eat normally. And so I like, you know, the food part kind of evened itself out. Like I started running more, doing a lot more cardio because I think there was still that goal to be skinny. And it wasn't really until the last couple of years, and I credit like CrossFit with this, and I think there has been more of a movement towards weight training and communicating to like women or people who may not necessarily see themselves as someone who like that's for me to get into it. And so it wasn't until probably right before COVID that I was like, I don't need to, you know, I was balancing like running a lot with CrossFit. And it's like, I don't need to do this anymore. Like if I want to be strong, that's fine. And now I laugh because, you know, myself at age 29, I cannot imagine 10 years ago that version of me being like, you're happy to be, you know, in the 130s or like whatever. And it's still an interesting balance of trying to find like what makes you comfortable. And we talk about this all the time, like as athletes trying to eat enough and all of this and that. But like I don't know, I was thinking about it after seeing this tweet, because I was like, yeah, there was a lot of pressure growing up to have a thigh gap, or like your wrists, you know, if you're touching your fingers when you put your like hand around your wrists, or like your arms are really small. And now I'm like, how much can we bench press? So I'm glad that there's been this trend towards like, you know, strength, I think a little bit more. And if you want to exercise to lose weight or maintain a certain body, you know, whatever it is, like image or like percentage, and that's totally fine. Like I will 100% support your fitness endeavors in, you know, hopefully in a healthy way. But at least like personally, I'm like, thank God you know, something happened, or like we've been through enough of this journey to now be able to say like, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting just like seeing some of that discourse, because it's like, I don't know if they do that. I mean, obviously I'm sure there are still like weight loss programs and things like that, but like you don't see, at least I shop at Trader Joe's, which is a very specific kind of grocery store, so like I don't have a lot of context over the last couple of years for like, you know, Kroger or whatever else is out there, but like those like 100-calorie packs and like the puddings and like the fake cookies and stuff, like those were so big for so long, and now it just seems like there's less of that. So I don't know if it's like a social shift or like a personal shift or something, but I don't know, which is interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, so a couple comments I have to add to that are, you know, number one, you had mentioned that it wasn't really until the pandemic to take you to realize that shift. I think that's the exact same time that it happened for me, because when we were still in Cleveland, you know, we both were we were working out and we were training really hard, but the emphasis was always weight loss. I was always thinking of, so right before we got married, I went I did like a vegan diet for a month, and I lost a ton of weight unintentionally. I was also working through the beginnings of some GI health issues, which are, you know, hot girls with stomach problems. But you know, so I was doing a little bit of, I was doing vegan. I was trying to figure out like what was agreeable to me, and I unintentionally lost about 10 pounds, which on my frame is a lot.
Yeah.
And the feedback that I got from my girlfriends was all positive.
Yeah.
They were like, you look amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so in my head, I still to this day think, oh, if only I could get to that weight.
Yeah.
When I tell you my weight now versus that weight, it's, I mean, I was 137 pounds. Right now I'm 155.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a significant amount. You know, I look at pictures now and I'm like, ooh, I was really, really thin.
Yeah.
But there is still something in my head that says, oh, that's the goal.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you have to attain. But it wasn't until the pandemic when I think the pandemic, it was a catalyst for me giving up social media, and social media, I think, really perpetuated that. But then there was this other focus of, you know, people were really kind of looking inward for you know, how to feel good on the inside as well as the outside, and how to fuel their bodies and everything like that. And I don't know exactly what caused that shift, but I'm really grateful for it, because, you know, and I think still not everybody has had that, right?
Yeah.
You know, I still think about, so I cross train between, in addition to CrossFit, I also I take dance classes, and I take martial arts, and I do Pilates. And martial arts is very similar to CrossFit. You have to have a pretty significant portion, like you should have some muscle on your body if you know, that's the goal, right? You want to get stronger. But something that's always very triggering for me when I go to a dance class, and it has nothing to do with the environment that the class is in. I think they create a very welcoming environment. All body types are welcome. But it is my own head when I look in the mirror and I see that I'm the largest girl in the class. That's hard for me still.
Yeah.
And one of the things I absolutely love about CrossFit is I can walk in a room and I'm like, these are girls that look like me.
Yeah.
And that is celebrated because it was never, you know, my friends back home have always said, wow, you are so muscular and you are so strong. And, you know, I think they did admire that, but I still can't keep going back in my, like, I keep going back to when I got so thin and they were like, wow, you just, like, that's goals.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been the same for all of my friends. Whenever they would lose a lot of weight, we'd be like, that's goals. And it's like, that's not the goal, because if I think about how I was feeling at the time, I wasn't feeling fueled. I couldn't have done any kind of strength training.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a very different community, and I feel like CrossFit's a very positive community for, at least in the circles that we are in.
I think we're really lucky in that we have, like, we've talked about this, we have a very supportive group of girlfriends. I think everyone, and again, like, people are going to use fitness for whatever they want, but I think at least in our case right now, a lot of people that we know, like, do want to focus on strength, which I think is really lucky. And I have the same sentiments about, like, I'm really glad to, not just here, but, like, the other gyms that I've been to, like, ever since kind of transitioning out of, like, running a lot, is like, yeah, there are people that have the same body type as me, they have the same goals as me, like, we want to cheer them on, we all want to get stronger, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, like, whatever you want. So I'm really lucky, like, I think we're really lucky to have that, and I hope that things keep going that way. You know, health is different for everyone. So, like, find what makes you happy and what keeps you healthy. You know, if that's a certain fitness thing, if that's, like, counting, if that's whatever, you know, do whatever. Like, I just want. I'm glad we've moved past it feels like we've moved past the trend of, like, you need to be super skinny to be valued, when that is very clearly not the case. So I'm glad that we I'm glad we've done that.
Well, and that kind of takes me back to to this whole Pinterest board, because I have this pin that says, it says, when you're struggling with your fitness goals, imagine the outfits you'll wear, as if you can only wear a certain outfit when you're a certain size, right?
Sure.
Or, like, like there was this whole idea, you know, that, oh, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels,
or, like, the bikini body.
Exactly. And I'm like, we've just been sold this lie of, like, you know, we have to look a certain way in order to present ourselves in society. And I think I really love now a lot of, you know, I think I still struggle to find in terms of, like, fashion, you know, influencers or people that look like my body type specifically. But I do love seeing more mid-sized women sharing their outfits and sharing, you know, oh, this is what this looks like on a size 0. I'm a size 12. Here's what it looks like on me. You can wear the same outfit. I would love, it's like my dream to be a fashion influencer for athletic women, because that's a totally different, right? Because, I mean, mid-size curvy women, it's a different body type, right? You know, and I think there are certain things that I'm like, I've learned a lot through, like, trial and error of dressing, like, how I like to present my body type, and I would love to, like, share things that I've learned with other women who might struggle, right? Like, we're always struggling to find jeans, we're always struggling to find, like, long sleeve tops, forget it. Like, I'm gonna feel like a stuffed sausage unless there's, like, some kind of stretch or something that's giving, you know. So, but yeah, at the same time, you know, it's nice to see that no matter what your body type is, you know, we're not being sold this lie of, like, well, your thighs can't touch if you want to wear a skirt or whatever. So I do have a thigh gap exercise on there too. That's cringe.
I mean, but that was the thing, right? Back in, like, what? I mean, I was in high school, so 2010 to 2013, that was, like, such a big thing. That being said, if you do have recommendations for jeans that fit athletic body types, we are happy to try a new brand or explore what people have to say, because
Yeah.
finding ones that you can sit in. Where were we? Where we were both leaning back. We were in our standing jeans.
I bought these jeans from Levi's, right? And I don't know who they're built for, right? Because the waist is too big, the butt's too small. And then as soon as I sit down, I'm like, I feel like my ass is just gonna explode out of these. Like, it's just gonna be a spontaneous combustion situation. And so anyways, if anyone has any jean recommendations, please let us know, because I think Abercrombie is
what we've tried most recently. I did hear Aritzia jeans
oh really
might be good, which we have like every other article of clothing from Aritzia that's
true.
not jeans.
That's true.
I'm willing to give Madewell another shot.
Yeah.
So maybe now that maybe next time I buy clothes, and I want some black jeans too. So maybe that's where we go. But if you have recommendations for curvy jeans, I tried on that too. I tried on this bodysuit at Viore. And it was kind of this, I was like, I don't know. I was so excited because it was so cute.
Yeah.
But I don't know like what person this was made for, because I put it on and it like the length and stuff was fine. The top was too big, which like I don't have much going on top, I admit it, and that's fine. The top was so big. The bottom was so small. I was like, I cannot go out in public like this. Like, we would be rocking and rolling. It was not good.
Yeah.
I was just like, who does, like, what? I don't know. So.
And I think, ooh, that's another tangent. Okay, I'm gonna set that aside. But yes, and I have the same thing, right? Because I have a very wide upper body. Like I'm like an upside down triangle shape. I don't have like a lot of like boobage going on, and then I've got this fat ass,
which we love,
which we love. We celebrate that, but clothing companies I still have yet to get it right, you know. So, and I think that makes it especially hard too when I don't actually have like width in my hips, which I feel like a lot of companies are building in width for the hips, but not necessarily for the junk in the back.
Yeah.
And so that's, so I always have some kind of fit issue, and I'm like, there have to be other people who are built like me who are having these same issues, but I still have yet to find that very niche, usually there are people who have like my body type don't have very much like of a booty going on. So
if anybody wants to like sponsor us,
do we have any personal stylists or anything,
or if any organizations or companies want to use us as models, like I'm not gonna say no.
We will happily try on jeans for you.
We'll see. We'll go shopping in like a couple months, and I'm sure we'll be back on the same emotional grind. So it's fine.
It is. It's so taxing.
Speaking of emotional grind, how are your goals going?
Ooh, that is a great question. So I think I have two comments. One, so one of my goals was to be less nice, more in terms of speaking my mind, right? And challenging things directly instead of, as a people pleaser, I've always tended to just kind of agree with people. And I think, so what I've started to realize is, we talked last week about observing and observing yourself and how you're reacting and how others are reacting to you. And I think I've done a really good job of that and observing when I am placating. I have found that there's this, I can't figure out how to speak my mind without doing it bluntly. And I'll give a specific example. I gave some feedback to a recruiter that I've been working with for a job about a position a project I've been working on. And I tried to make it as professional as possible, right? And I was like, because what I really wanted to say was not going to come across very good, right? Like, but I mentioned that the communication was poor and that, I feel that, you know, there are certain aspects of that communication that I would like to see improved. And then I just feel like I did not get my point across at all. And, you know, the recruiter was repeating back what I said, and he wasn't really getting what I was saying. So I think I need to figure out how to say what I mean directly without it coming out as kind of asshole-ish, you know. And maybe I'm thinking that I'm being asshole-ish when really, like, it's just that, you know, you're just being a direct communicator. But so that's something that I'm still working on, still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
But, and then training like an anime character is going great. I went to the gym 5 days this week.
Yes.
I did not want to go to the gym 5 days this week, but I'm happy and I feel good and I feel strong and my appetite's good. So, you know, all good things there.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about for you?
I mean, I think mine, aside from like the physical ones, which like that's just gonna happen as it happens this year based on our cycles. But I think like the thing that I've been thinking a lot about this week and in talking to some of our girlfriends, and of course like I see stuff online and I get really influenced by things online. I see a lot about like, you know, when it comes to, I think like relationships in general, but you can also extrapolate out to friendships. Like, you know, you deserve this, and take what you deserve, and like we don't chase, we attract, and like all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, you need to love yourself before you can love. I don't believe that really.
Yeah.
But it's sort of, I saw some stuff this week about, it's like if you are toxic to yourself, you will continue to choose toxic like friendships and relationships, or you're, you know, if you're not healed or like you're not working on your healing, like you'll be gravitating towards like these also unhealed people. And that kind of, it frustrated me a little bit. And again, like it's broad information that you can give to anything. But for me, I was like, I don't know, I love myself. Like, I don't think I'm toxic to myself, apart from like maybe eating too many Cheetos or like letting my anxiety get the best of me. But it's like, I'm not trying to choose like this type of relationship. Yeah. So it's the same thing before of like, how do I not get into this trap of like believing that I'm not doing something right, or that like I'm not listening to what other people are saying, because it's like, I know my worth, I know what I want, I know what I deserve. I just don't know. There's also a lot that I can't control, and that the universe, like, I want to believe in the universe, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I'm trying to be better about not like getting down on myself, or like trying to understand like why I am the way that I am. And it's like, it's okay to have these qualities. It's just, maybe it's a matter of boundaries. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. It's just, I am trying not to get stuck on shit that I see on the internet. So.
Yeah. And I think that the thing about the stuff on the internet is that it's always, it always feels like it's just a blanket statement that like, who does that really apply to, right? You know? And I think for you, like, I think you're doing all the right things, you know? I mean, could we all set better boundaries? Probably. But I also think that you attract a certain type of person based on, you know, like, you're very, like, you're a very, like, warm person. When, like, as I get to know you, like, you bring out, I think, a lot of people's, how do I explain this? Because like, it's a very like good thing, but it could probably attract people who, like, you're like an anchor, right? Like people see, like you've got your shit together.
I appreciate that.
And even though you might not, you know, some days, I mean, who really feels like they have their shit together? But you know, I think, you probably attract people who want a figure in their life that feels responsible and feels, you know, and those types of people are always gonna kind of come into your life. It's kind of like that whole, you know, empath narcissist talk, right? Like, as a certain type of person, you're going to attract this type of person who might be toxic to you, and you can't really, there's not a whole lot that you can control. As you get to know the person, as you begin to like set better boundaries, like you can help that. But you know, at the same time, you might just attract the fuckboys. I don't know.
I
don't know.
No, I don't think it's that.
Yeah.
I think there is something to be said about, like, I don't know, being like, you don't. It's always the like you go after people that are like your opposite parent, you know, your parental figures or whatever, and it's like, I don't. Yeah, it's not about being someone's. You can help, trying to find a way to help someone like without being their parent.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's maybe part of it, but I appreciate the thought that I have my life together. I don't know. We'll see.
I know.
Tune back in next week. I'll have my life together.
Will Emily finally have her life together?
It's one of those recurring segments.
I do feel like every time, and it's just so cyclical, right? Like I'll be like, wow, I finally feel like an adult.
Yeah.
And then something will happen, and I'm just like, I'm not. Like I couldn't care for, you know, children. I don't feel capable of like caring for like other people outside of myself sometimes, and I'm just like, how are other people? I think, you know, maybe we're all just faking it, but
I think that's just living.
Yeah, like, you know, I don't really think anyone ever feels like they truly have their shit together.
I am so inspired by your commitment and drive to like figuring out what you want. And I know we talked about this last week in the scope of like, you know, you're being like a bent arrow or whatever instead of like a straight arrow. And I know like it can be challenging trying different jobs and like different hobbies and things to figure it out, but it's like that also inspires me to be like, I want to go after what I want to go after. And it might just take a little bit longer than other things, but like I want you to know we're here on this journey.
I'm glad we inspire each other.
I know, look at that. Okay, with that, ending on a high note. No, we'll see. We'll keep tuning in about our goals and things. Next week starts open prep for real at our gym. Last week was a banger of a week. Well, this past week, but also the week before. So we're excited to kind of see as we get into that.
Yeah, those 45 thrusters.
Don't talk to me about those.
I know. I'm still so mad. Between that and the bike test, and then trying to do that workout after the bike test, that was a lot.
It was a lot. So, yeah. Well, my cat's sleeping, which is great.
So cozy.
He's very cozy. We need to figure out what we're doing tonight, if we are doing something tonight.
Yeah.
Because it's cold, but...
It is cold. I kind of like to, you know, I would love to have a human-sized cat tree, maybe, or...
That's your couch!
Oh, you are right. You know, I just have to add, Paul and I love to make like blanket forts. We haven't figured out how to do it yet in our newest place because like all the furniture that we usually have isn't there. So we tried when we were sick and it was just disastrous. But I love the, like, you know, the feeling of being like tent. Yeah, like being enclosed in something.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to build some kind of contraption to crawl into.
That's your challenge for this week.
Okay, I'm gonna do it
for your house. Cool.
I love it.
Sweet.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening.
We're super excited for this one. Next week, I don't know. We have a lot of things on the docket, so you just have to find your way back. But hopefully by the time this goes up, or at least is functional, I will also have like our Instagram account and like email address available. So, like I said, sponsors, we're here.
We're making strides.
We're ready. But yeah, super excited for week 2.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.